Welcome to the Legacy Lifestyle Podcast. So glad that you've joined us today. Say hello, Jesse.
Hello.
I just feel like that's so weird. You're not my trained monkey, but do you feel like a trained monkey when I say that? Say hello, Jesse.
Maybe a little.
All right, I need to stop doing that then. Anyway, we're having fun. I don't know. I'm just kidding. My lovely wife, Jessie, is here joining me on, of course, this is our podcast, and so good to be back. We're kind of working through this Legacy Lifestyle series. This is kind of the core of what we want to do with the Legacy Lifestyle. So we talked about what is your legacy. Last week, we talked about the Eisenhower Matrix, which, by the way, Jessie, did you go to work and start talking to your coworkers and bring it up?
No.
You didn't go and say something like, Kris and I were discussing the Eisenhower Matrix lately. No,
that's a weird voice.
It's the rich, stuck-up, snobby voice. That's what
and
it is.
And people that talk like that are probably very offended by you right now.
Well, they need more self-awareness, darling. But anyway, so here's the deal. The Eisenhower Matrix, I know that sounds like super intimidating. It's not, but it really just helps us like identify the whirlwind, the things that we're doing. So if you've not listened to that, I would really strongly suggest go back, because I'm not going to recap it all here, but you're going to want to listen to that because that gets you thinking about priorities and the things that are important.
Right, and just the things that are just happening to you and happening because of you. I mean, just in everyday life. And
from there, our goal is our goal is for you to find your goals, right? It's to help you identify, how do I be intentional in life? And so that was called surviving versus thriving. So with all of that, if you've done some homework, and hey, it's okay to listen to these podcasts more than once, right, Jesse?
Yes.
Right? It's okay to
recommend it.
Yes. Bookmark, take notes, revisit some of these concepts. This isn't just to listen to and, oh, I got it. No. And especially today with what we're going to talk about, these are concepts you're going to have to keep revisiting.
Well, and I would say that because it's like you and I have been married for August will be 19 years.
Good job.
And the thing is like it took us 5 to 8 to start implementing a lot of this, and we're still learning.
Absolutely.
Like that's the thing, it's like marriage shouldn't just be we've figured all this out and so we can just kind of coast. It should be an ongoing like learning process where you're kind of learning how to engage with each other. If you have kids, you have to learn how to engage with them.
Life changes.
And it's just, and if you change careers, if you change, you know, it's just all of those things. You have to learn how to communicate with people on different levels. And I think even science, like people studying the brain and how our brains work, how we connect with one another, how we don't connect with one another. I think all of those things, we're still researching a lot of that.
Absolutely.
And even how the hormones affect all of that. So I think there's just always a time to just be learning and growing and making yourself better.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. And so one of the things, especially with this episode, the things that we're going to prescribe, we're going to talk about a rule of life and having your ideal week. Be kind to yourself, but be accountable.
Yeah.
Right.
That's hard.
It's really, really hard to do. And I just, you and I went to dinner this last week with another couple who we felt, we got financial advice from, because they just had a system of doing things well. And it was so kind of almost refreshing to hear them go, yeah, we've kind of fallen out of routine, and it was just, they were just being honest about it. And they were just saying, hey, we need to brush up on this. Yeah. This is a system. So we're going to talk about here in a second. This is a system that it's good to have in place. But we'll talk about, you don't want it so rigid that you beat yourself up if you don't keep it 100%.
Right. Well, and what I was encouraged by their story was just, they're like, well, so we had our first meeting after 1 or 2 months of not meeting every week. And so,
they had a routine of meeting weekly.
They were upset at themselves a little bit for not doing that. But at the same time, they were just like, well, we're just starting again. Yeah.
So here's the deal. So hopefully what you're doing is you're dreaming and you're thinking about your life. You're thinking about intentionality, what you want out of life, what you want, again, your legacy. Think about this. I thought about this legacy statement. So this might help you out, get the gears going, would be to answer this or fill this in. So grab a notebook and write this statement, right? I want to be someone who, and then just let your brain go crazy and write down, I want to be someone who, whatever it is, reads a book a month, or I want to be someone who, just put whatever's in there. Write those things down. I want to be someone who, leaves a legacy through money. I want to be someone who donates my time to my local school. I want to be someone who's a little league coach, whatever that is. Think about these things. And especially don't just think about yourself.
Right.
But again, this is the Legacy Lifestyle Podcast. Think about what you want to be a contributor to,
Yeah.
And so anyway, and out of that, you should have some goals. Now, here's the thing. Everything that you write down, you're probably not going to be able to do.
Right.
But it's okay to see, are there themes? Are there things that connect? And start to, that's kind of like lead into this idea of a rule of life. And so, rule of life, what is it? Okay. Rule of life, honestly, comes out of the monastic tradition. In other words, monks.
Oh.
And I'll tell you, Jesse, monks get a bad rap because we think all they do is like sit in these cold caves and, pray and read scripture all the time. Is that what you thought of monks?
Well, I guess I thought they meditated.
Okay, so maybe some meditation.
They operate a lot of disciplines. So like they'll go through like a month
fasting
or a
and things
year
like that.
of silence.
Yep. Well, so here's the deal: is monks, and I'm talking about in the Christian tradition. Really, the monastic tradition, they were heavily involved in their communities. I mean, they were great gardeners, and they were always doing things for their communities, providing care, and so they were like deeply involved. And the monks developed this. Is called a rule of life, and in the Latin, the word for rule is actually equivalent to what we would know as a trellis or a lattice, right? And so if you think like of a viney structure, and the cool thing about it is when I say rule of life, we kind of sometimes bristle at that notion because we think rules, bad, right?
I was just thinking of a ruler getting smacked in your hand for not doing not doing the right thing.
Man, you had some rough teachers. Yeah.
No, that wasn't my teacher, but I was like, I don't know. It just comes to my mind.
Yeah. And so that's the thing. We think of rules, but really when you think about a lattice or something that allows for a vine to grow, think about this. It provides structure for the vine because if the vine was only on the ground, it's not going to maximize fruit. It's a place where it can be trampled on, right? So a lattice provides a place where it's a structure that the vine can grow and maximize its potential.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not so rigid that it can't bend or move.
Right.
And if the wind blows, and we talked about the whirlwind last week, right? When the wind blows, there's flexibility there.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about creating with a rule of life is allow yourself some flexibility. This is not meant for you to hit 100%.
Yeah. See,
you're an all or nothing person.
I'm an all or nothing person.
So am I.
I'm really hard on myself.
Yeah.
So you're saying don't be hard on yourself.
No.
So that's already a struggle.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And you're saying don't make it rigid.
Yep.
Struggle.
Yeah.
So how do you not? I mean, I when I think of rule of life, I'm thinking, okay, these are just goals.
Yeah.
And it's not goal setting?
It's not goal setting. So here's the thing is, okay, from your goal. So let's just say if you had a goal, I want to lose 20 pounds or whatever, okay? Well, that's a great thing, but don't put that necessarily in your rule of life. And let's talk about categories first.
Okay.
I think the best way, and I've got this like grid sheet here, and if you're watching, you can see this where I've got like kind of across the top these categories: spiritual, physical, family, financial, vocational, right? Those are kind of these categories that we want to think about. So when it comes to your spiritual life, when it comes to your physical life, family life, financial life, vocational life. And then I go down and we talk about daily, weekly, monthly, annually. So again, if you got a notebook, just draw those things out. Right across the top, those categories: spiritual, physical, family, financial, vocational. And then go down the side of daily, weekly, monthly. And I'm not putting goals in there, okay? But here's the thing. I want to lose 20 pounds. That doesn't go in your rule of life, but think about the habits or the behaviors that would set you up for success there.
Okay. So measurable.
Yeah.
What are those three?
Yeah, SMART goals.
Yeah.
Specific, measurable, attainable. Anyway.
Yeah.
Realistic, and then a time set thing. And that is good for goal setting. But again, this is kind of what we're doing here. A rule of life is providing a structure. So if I think about, okay, I want to lose 20 pounds. Okay, well, what might do that? Well, maybe exercising 2, 3, 4 days a week, whatever that is. And look at your schedule. Be honest with yourself. What could you really do?
Right.
And you don't even, I mean, the thing it is like, it's not even like you have to exercise to lose weight, because we know it's not just physical movement.
Abs are made in the kitchen.
Abs are made in the kitchen. That's right. But so then those are other things as well. Like, And a lot of times, like say specifically with weight loss, we think about taking things away, but really it's like, well, no, what could I add to my life? So is it, maybe it's, I want to eat a salad today, or I want to start my day off with a smoothie, and I'm going to put whole nutritious ingredients in there. And maybe that's the thing that provides the structure, for you to lose weight. And so let's talk about maybe another, let's talk about like family life. Okay. So you say, well, I want to connect more with my kids, or I want to connect more with my spouse. Okay. Well, what's a structure? What's a system that you put in place that would help with that?
So like for us, we have like Monday or Tuesday evenings,
right?
Like are pretty open.
Yep.
We don't have a lot on our calendar on those evenings, and we try not to schedule things on those evenings so that we can spend our supper times with our kids.
Yeah.
And we usually have a book that we go through, or we have some questions that we ask our kids. We'll talk about
game night.
Yeah. We'll play games.
So we
our son's like really into that.
Yeah. And we've allowed it to where it's like everybody gets a pick of their game. So it's like, it's a rotation that happens, right? So the goal is connection. Mm-hmm. Well, what's the support structure? The other thing we do is also Shabbat or Sabbath. For us, I'm a pastor, so Sundays are already kind of booked full. So, and we'll talk about this on a future episode, but for us, it's Friday night is pretty sacred to us. Friday night on into Saturday. That's really our family, like that 24 hours. We're trying to be very intentional.
And it's not that we can't invite friends into that place with us. It's just we're not doing stuff that we find as work.
Yeah. Financial, something you and I, and again, do we hit this all the time? No, but financial, one of the things that we do as a weekly goal is we try to sit down, look at our budget, look at our numbers, where's our spending going. We have that an app called Mint, which is a free app. It syncs with your accounts, and it'll tell you where every dollar is going. It'll track your spending, and then you can categorize it. And for us, again, if we have a financial goal of having an emergency fund or anything like that,
I want to go on vacation, and it's going to cost this much.
Those are the goals. Yep. Well, what's the structure or the habits that are going to lead to that? And again, are we perfect about meeting every week?
No,
absolutely not. But it's something that, here's the deal. A rule of life is something that you are honest with yourself. You look at these categories and you think about the daily habits, the weekly habits, the systems that need to be in place, the monthly, yearly, okay? Even vocational. Vocational could be something about, hey, once every month or a couple months, I want to read a book related to my field. That's just going to make me better. And again, don't say, I'm going to read a book a week.
Well, and I even think of vocation, it may not be like the job that you're working.
Yeah, good point.
But it could be the thing that, I don't know how to explain that. Kind of like the thing that you feel most drawn to in life. So like for me, I love meeting with people. I love
mentoring
helping them.
Yeah, you're definitely a mentor.
I can. And that doesn't mean that I have to meet with them like for 3 months. Mm-hmm. It could just be one meeting just to encourage them and get them on, onto the next thing. But it like a lot of my reading is related to my marriage, or it's related to raising my kids, or it's related to how I relate to others, or how I can mentor or disciple. So it's like your vocation doesn't necessarily have to be your job. I work at a dental office and I'm a receptionist. There are only so many books that I could read.
You're not reading books on being a receptionist?
No. And it's like, it doesn't really interest me to read about it.
Yeah.
So just from that perspective, a vocation doesn't necessarily have to be the job that you hold.
But maybe you're tuning into the Legacy Lifestyle Podcast, which at the heart is a leadership podcast. And so it could make you a better receptionist when you think about organizational dynamics. So, just throwing that out there. So anyway, here's the deal. Again, how do you do this rule of life? Now the thing of it is that this takes tweaking and monitoring. So you draw this thing out, you can put it in a grid, or you can, again, kind of those categories across the top. Spiritual. Well, what about daily? Well, maybe I just want to have my quiet time. Maybe I want to have 10 minutes of worship and prayer, or whatever that looks like, for you. Again, put it on there, but again, be honest with yourself. Like, what is realistic in my life? Away from the whirlwind. This is some intentionality. And then what does that look like? Weekly, monthly, annually. And so again, spiritual, physical, family, financial, vocational.
So in making this, okay, like the first question you ask that question, would you recommend them going like just out, like away from
absolutely
the busyness of life, like maybe taking a weekend and just getting away and really making it intentional? So whatever maybe revives you or helps you relax completely, so that you can really process and think. Because as you were going through this, I'm like, well, man, for me to make a rule of life, I'm going to need to, all of my goals are going to be needed to list out. And then I'm going to have to parse out what is, and maybe even pray a little bit to see if, am I putting too much strain on myself versus what I need to do?
So let me comment on that, because you got to look out for the shoulds. Okay. In other words, a lot of us will struggle with, well, I should be doing this. 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 And then when you know it, you've should all over yourself. you should. All right. But anyway, little joke there. All right. Maybe mildly offensive to some. I'm kidding. Anyway. But this idea we have these like, well, I should. And the thing of it is like, you really need to, once again, be compassionate toward yourself and be realistic about these things. And whose expectations are these really?
Yeah.
Sometimes we put things in our life. Now, here's the deal. This is why you got to be, I say this, there's an old quote, Zig Ziglar, who says, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. The rule of life is really about setting a target for your life to say, if I do these things, it will propel me. But it's okay to come back and revisit and tweak it and go, man, I just
can't do this.
I can't do this. Or I've imposed standards on myself that maybe I have this expectation of myself, but nobody else does. Or maybe God doesn't even have these expectations of me, and so it's okay. So you might list all these things and then you come back and revisit it. And I'd say, especially when you're first getting going, ideally a rule of life is something that I think that annually is good to review.
Right.
But that's after you've worked with it a while. Sometimes you might have to visit it monthly.
Okay.
And then make adjustments, make changes to go, maybe at a future time, but that might not be okay now. Maybe I can only get to the gym twice a week. I said 4 times, but life just doesn't allow for it.
Sure.
That's okay.
Okay.
The idea is that at least if I'm intentional about something, I'm moving my life forward. And so if I'm hitting these categories, I know that I've got some forward traction. But be careful with the shoulds.
Okay.
Be very careful with the shoulds.
So with that, I'm just thinking of daily.
Yeah.
So is there something that helps you meet that ideal daily or ideal weekly goals? Like, is there something else that? So
I would say once you've kind of established your rule of life, now this is kind of big picture, then you want to transition to, and this isn't original to me. It's out there. You can go and actually Google spreadsheets on this, and it's called the ideal week. Okay. The ideal week. And you can find things that the little grids that'll print out like pretty much every waking hour of the day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Find something like that. And here's what I would recommend. Budget for every stinking hour.
Well, it's so interesting that you say this, because I just was going through a mental health coaching class.
Yeah.
And one of the things that she brought up, and it was just about organizing your workspace, because sometimes as a coach, you're kind of at your home sometimes. So you're not necessarily at a work place. Yeah. So you're not leaving your home. So she just was talking about organization. Mm-hmm. And she said, you need to print out what to do hourly and have every hour accounted for, because she said there's so many missed moments. And she just talked about the value of time. Yeah. And so it's just interesting that you're bringing that up, of the hourly.
Well, and again, be intentional about it. Like, so I noticed you brought your ideal week. And so we really mean this, like every hour accounted for. Because here's what happens. Like when you sit down and do it, when you sit down and start filling it out, one thing that you'll kind of realize is, I have more time than I realize.
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, here's the thing though, but be honest about everything. If you commute to work, put it in there, right? I mean, if it's a half hour to work and half hour back home, that's an hour out of your day. You got to be honest about that. Don't just say, I work 9 to 5 or whatever it is. No, it's really more like 7:30 to 5:30.
Right.
Like, you got to be honest about that. But also at the same time, what you'll find is, usually when I get home, I open my phone and I check some emails and I surf social media. Then all of a sudden it's like 7 or 8 o'clock at night and you've just blown 2 hours. It's like, I haven't had supper yet.
Yeah. Well, interesting, because this gal was talking about how even checking your emails, devote yourself only to
certain
10
times.
emails at a time, and maybe even spreading that out into, okay, I'm going to spend 5 minutes here, I'm going to spend 10 minutes here, I'm going to spend an hour here. And so then it just really kind of breaks it up a little bit, but also makes you very intentional when you go in there. I know a guy who will not answer text messages except for between certain hours. He won't. Some people will have this practice of first thing in the morning when they get to the office, and again, they put it on the schedule. From if I get to the office at 8 o'clock, from 8 to 9, I'm responding to emails. That's it. They may come back after lunch and do it. Okay. Maybe after lunch, but it's like, and they just have communicated with people, hey, I will get back to you within 24 hours. Well, generally speaking, unless it's over the weekend, then hey, and that's okay. I think that's the thing. We got to give ourselves permission to do those kind of things. Well, and put boundaries.
And that helps us set boundaries. So as you're looking at this, like, I'm looking at yours right now, and you have like, okay, you're waking up at a certain time, and you've got your gym time in there. And again, be honest, like, okay, there's gym time, and then if you're heading into work, well, you're probably going to shower, or you're probably, again, make sure you're accounting for all that. Yeah. And I would even say, so you've kind of got work scheduled in there and you've got it kind of blocked out. It would be okay to even, think through your work day. Now, you're a receptionist, and so, obviously it's a little bit fluid because you're checking in patients. But are there specific times? Are there patterns? Maybe there is, maybe there's not. But in your own work life, I'm talking to the listener now, like in your own work life, are there certain patterns that this would be a time to check email, this would be a time to clean something, this would be the time.
Or to run errands, and then make sure your errands are in a way. So she said 20 minutes.
For what?
For running errands if you don't schedule it in a way that it brings you back to the place you started. So basically you run your first errand. Okay. But it needs to be close to the second errand and then the third. Okay. So it needs to run in a way that you're not wasting time. Well, okay. Because she said basically you don't want to go, I need to go here, and then you go here, and then you go out here, and then you come back here, and then you go back. Yeah. Because she's like, that's 20 minutes of wasted drive time. You want more of a circle than a star. Yes. Right? Yes. Yeah. So she said 20 minutes. 20 minutes. I'm like, 20 minutes of wasted time? Well, I think she might be a little unrealistic. I'm just like, listen, we live in somewhat, by national standards, a small town. 30,000 or whatever, but it still takes me 10 minutes to drive from one side of town to the other. Right. So 20 minutes, I'm like, Well, she's saying of wasted time. I gotcha. Meaning you're wasting your time. Don't do something in South Kearney and then go to North Kearney and back to South Kearney. Yes. Yeah, I get it. So, right. Anyway. So now here's the deal. You account for every hour. And I'm talking every hour of every day of the week. Now, again, some of you, if you're like kind of this free spirit type, you're just like, forget that. I am not doing that. But I want to help us out here. The ideal week, again, think of like that lattice. It's not saying, this is just saying, if you had your perfect week, what would it look like? That's what we're doing. Right. We're just saying, if everything went right, I know tires go flat. Right. I understand that kids get sick or break their wrist or whatever, and you got to go and take them to the emergency room. This actually happened, right? For us. Life happens. Yeah. The purpose of the ideal week is not to enslave you. So again, off the rule of life, if this is something that, again, we look at annually to kind of say, where am I moving? So if I'm thinking about my 3-year goals, I'm thinking about my 5-year goals, I'm thinking about where I want life to move. Rule of life kind of helps us have a big picture. Right. Okay. Then the ideal week helps us aim week to week.
And I'll just be honest. If you're I would say with an ideal week, if you're hitting it 85, 90% of the time, that's winning.
So see, right now I'm hitting mine, I think at 60. I might be at 70, but there's a couple days where I just do not wake up and get my running in.
Okay.
So let's stretching.
So yeah, we got a few minutes here. Let's talk about that.
So it's like my Tuesday. So I'm like, I wake up usually around 5 or 6 in the morning.
Okay. So what I'm saying is this.
But
so you've actually put it in writing.
Right.
So let's talk about, okay, you're struggling with this. So do you need to rework that? Is that realistic? I mean, are you?
I don't know. I don't know if I need to go to bed earlier or if I just need to make myself, like there's just certain things that it's like, if you have to make yourself do something
right.
so much, usually then it becomes routine.
Right.
Where I'm like, I don't know if I've just gotten out of routine and just need to push myself back into it.
Yeah.
Or if it's not realistic. I'm not going to wake up at 4:30 to do my running and my stretching. Cause like I leave for work I have to leave our house at 6:45 to get to work on time.
So one of the things I know in the book Atomic Habits, one of the things that he talks about in there that I do think is an interesting mind shift, because again, we can get into these, well, I should do this, I should do this, I should do this. It's something about, it's interesting to see how behavioral coaches and cognitive scientists and stuff are talking about how really things flow from identity. So when you say something like, I am a runner, you tend to behave more like a runner rather than just saying, I'm going to try really hard.
So it's probably not helpful that I say I hate cardio.
It's probably not doing you any favors, right? But it's and he even, like in Atomic Habits, even talks about, smokers, like one of the things, and I'm not just saying it's not just some trick or mental hack or whatever. I mean, listen, I've never smoked. I'm not, I'm not trying to say, I have family members. I know people who've tried to kick that. It's really, but he did talk about how in some studies, like there were people who just, even if they did have a cigarette from time to time, if they were ever offered one, they'd say, I don't smoke anymore. And so it was kind of a pattern where they were just, they're shifting their identity to say, no, that's not who I am anymore. Like I don't do that. And even people who have gotten into more physical routines, because here's the thing, I think a lot of times, especially with physical fitness, some people don't start because they think they don't see themselves that way. Because in their mind, there's this ideal standard. It's like, well, if I don't look like an athlete, why would I call myself an athlete? When it's like, I don't care if you're overweight. If you want to train for a marathon, hey, train for one and start calling yourself, I am a runner. Because you know what a runner does? Run.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only qualification.
Yeah.
A runner, you don't have to do it a certain amount of times, but I think there is something helpful in seeing yourself that way. And again, this isn't some sort of like positive, talk yourself into something, but it really is like a mental shift of, well, why can't I call myself healthy, or I eat nutritious, or I don't eat that food anymore, and I'm not trying to ban certain foods or whatever, but again, what's going to help you reach your goals or be your best self?
We have a mutual friend of ours that she runs a fitness place here in Kearney, and she just says she lives by a 90-10. So like 90% of her eating is healthy, and it's within her budget, what she's budgeted for calorically and protein wise. And then 10% is, I'm going to go have some donuts with my kids on Saturday morning. Yeah. And that is okay. And we might have even pizza the same day.
Right.
But after that, she goes back to her regular eating, what she considers her healthy habit of eating. And I was just like, that was just so helpful to me of just like, okay, it's not about 100%.
Right.
And so, some even say 80-20, but it's like whatever's going to be helpful for you. If 20 is too much leniency,
So here's the deal. So again, this is an episode, we've given you a lot of stuff to think about. This is a lot to process through. It's okay to go back and listen to this again. Let's kind of wrap this up.
Sorry. One more thing. You were talking about free spirits.
Yes. The
one thing I will say with your ideal week, you have to, like, I like watching TV at night.
Yeah, put it in there.
So it's like I have that in my ideal week.
Put your downtime in there. It's a good point.
So if you're I want to go, I don't know, rock climbing or whatever, just to relax, or you want to go out with your friends or whatever, put it in there.
And you can even put it in there as free time.
Yeah.
So if that feels less constrictive, you just say, hey, this chunk of time, I can do whatever I want. Yeah. You're at least, you can be spontaneous, you can whatever, but at least it's something you can aim for. It's a target, right?
Yeah.
So let's kind of wrap this up, okay? So here's the deal. In this episode, really what we're wanting is we want you to think big picture. Think from that legacy statement. I want to be someone who, okay? And then write as many things down. From that, then think about, okay, in 3 years, where do I want to be? In 5 years, where do I want to be? And then that will start to inform what are the structures, what are the systems, what are the habits I need in place for my rule of life so I can develop a rule of life. Check in with your rule of life. If you've never done this before, check in with it monthly. First of the month, put it on your calendar, schedule it. I'm gonna go out for lunch. Again, usually this is best done away from your home, away from your work. Get out, have a coffee.
Maybe even away from your kids.
Maybe away from your kids. Yeah, just and revisit it. How is this going? How is this, right? And then from your rule of life, think about your ideal week, because if rule of life is kind of this annual thing that we kind of focus, then week to week this is how we're aiming. And again, be kind with yourself. If I'm not hitting my ideal week 100%, that's okay. The ideal week is, if everything were perfect, it would go like this. We understand life's not perfect, but am I being honest with my time? Am I being accountable with my time? And so with your ideal week, here's the thing is, I think that your ideal week is just something, keep it somewhere visible, somewhere in front of you. Maybe it's on your desktop, and just kind of look at it, tweak it. And I would say this, I think rule of life annually. Ideal week, here's my recommendation. I think there are 2 rhythms. 3. I think when you enter into the fall, especially if you have kids, you're in school, the school year dictates a lot of things. So your ideal week is going to shift around the school calendar largely. So I think going into the fall, write up your ideal week. Okay. Another time to revisit it would be the first of the year.
Sure.
Okay, we still have school patterns, but maybe things are a little different because it's different sports, it's different. Okay, look at that. Okay, maybe adjust it. Maybe you make yourself a winter calendar. Okay, and then I would say summertime.
Oh yeah, because you have sometimes you have more freedom.
Sometimes more freedom. There's less structure for the kids. Okay, and so the ideal week is something I think that we look at more often.
Okay.
So I think when you build this thing, the rule of life is something you can look at annually, but then your ideal week is something I think you got to look at maybe quarterly, or maybe if not twice, maybe 3 times a year. So
you could maybe, like, you have like a rule of 7.
Yeah.
Where it's like, what is that, every 7 days?
Well, that kind of comes back to our family, like our family life. And so that was something I picked up from another leader. I don't remember his name. I'm sorry, but it's not original to me. But he had kind of this rule of 7 where it was, every 7 days he wanted, to spend some quality time with his wife, so a date night, every 7 days. Every 7 weeks he wanted like an extended, like a full day with his spouse.
Okay.
So it's like, hey, we're going to go maybe for us, it's like, hey, just the 2 of us, we're going to go to Omaha for a Saturday, just the 2 of us. And just, every 7 weeks, at least have that. And then it was every 7 months, or maybe, 7's easy to remember, but he just thought, whether it was 7 months or twice a year, he was going to take an extended, whether that was a weekend or maybe that was 4 or 5 days away with the spouse. So you look at that could be your anniversary or maybe another special time or whatever.
But I was just thinking of that, though. You could still use that as a way of like getting away with yourself or with your spouse and going over your rule of life, going over your ideal week, and just kind of revisiting those things, praying, spending some time,
absolutely,
just trying to figure those things out.
Yeah. Well, hey, we've loved that you've joined us. We've given you a lot to think about, I know. Go to our website, legacylifestyle.life. Like, share, subscribe to this podcast. It's completely free. And we'll see you next time, where we're going to talk about rhythms of life. All right? Is that it? Is that all we got for them this week?
Yeah.
All right. We'll catch you next time.